what was there in the film to make an audience go through these various emotions.
This video essay is an analytical assessment of the post-production process of Dreamers Insomnia, including its trailer and We Were E. Both of these short films categorized as science fiction set in the present but vary in terms of subgenre. Firstly, before the synopsis of both the short films, the essay will briefly introduce the science fiction genre as it plays a vital role in the rhythm of an edit. The notion of rhythmic editing will be presented in terms of emotion for the audience, the pre-visualization of shots before production, and the process of building the narrative and characters. Thereafter, the rhythm that contributes to jump cuts and a smooth cut will be analyzed. Furthermore, the analysis will include the challenges and decisions of an editor that contributed to the final outcome of each film. The influences upon the development of the films, such as theoretical analysis, related film editing techniques, and experiences of professional editors, will be included. Finally, the essay will briefly analyze the trailer of Dreamers Insomnia. The idea of a genre for an audience is the expectation about what is likely to be seen or heard. However, the genre of a movie changes when its elements are intermingled with those of another genre. For instance, both Dreamers Insomnia and We Were E differ in terms of supporting genre, that is psychological thriller and action respectively. It is believed that by merging genres, the audience will reset their expectations and engage with the film in a fresh way. Science fiction or sci-fi stems from a creative and critical imagination. The genre revolves around science technology and its fictional inventions that are logical within the movie but stands outside of the realistic world. The audience is presented with a narrative that triggers the mysterious performance of the unconscious mind. The difference between sci-fi and other genres is its particular visual medium through the technology of special effects and the de-emphasis of the narrative process. Hence, the new technology has made what has been impossible in the early films possible today. For instance, creating special effects through the development of computer graphics would have been previously impossible unless involved with fiddly stop motion and detail models. It has been purportedly found that George Méliès is the pioneer of the science fiction film. Although almost all theorists believe A Trip to the Moon was the first sci-fi film, author Brooks Landon refutes the statement because he believes all films made before 1906 holds a place in the science fiction genre. The proposed revision was established based upon the notion of science fiction cinema, that is, the visual medium and its use of technology evoke a similar response as current sci-fi movies. Hence, although primitive cinema did not depict sci-fi story, its two elements, the visual medium and de-emphasis of narrative, are indeed almost similar to the sci-fi cinema. Dreamers Insomnia is about the civilians of a multicultural metropolis who are falling into a coma epidemically. Seeking for advice, lucid dreamers Spectre and Spark attempt to find an awake dreamer, a mysterious comatose man who can help to stop this epidemic. The trio struggles to agree on a unanimous decision as the choices before them are bigger than themselves. We Were E is a sci-fi drama that centers around two main characters, a 15-year-old teenager and a woman in her 50s. Elliot first meets Adeline after escaping a highly secret institution. Despite the radical differences between the two, they form a unique bond that will be challenged by the extraordinary nature of the boy. This is the prequel of the many sequels to come in the near future.
How many shots are we going to use? Who are we going to be looking at? Who is the solo instrument here? When does the group of instruments come in? When exactly do they come in, and when do I stop them and go to the other?
Editing is driven by story and not style. This means storytelling as a rhythm based on a particular emotion instead of applying a particular style for an aesthetic purpose. Furthermore, editing is done in regards to an audience's expectation and to keep their interest throughout the entire movie, because when an audience leaves the cinema, they do not remember the types of shots or editing tricks used, but the emotion or how they feel. The rhythm of a sequence is produced by shaping the movements found in shots and across edits to construct a flow of emotional energy. This emotional energy is also achieved by pacing and timing of shots within a sequence. The editor controls the amount of time audience grasps and reflects on what they see. Rhythmic editing uses pacing to maintain continuity, establish a scene or location, but most importantly to provide a sense of emotional release. The usage of pacing has evolved since Eisenstein's films. Since then, pacing has been used to build tension, create a sense of chaos, energize dialogue-heavy narrative, and its ultimate use to mesmerize its audience. Consequently, the arc of pacing would most probably be impossible to achieve if the action was only in a single shot.
The audience must be made comfortable at the beginning, so that then once you've given them all the information they require, then you can start to be purely cinematic and start to tell your story.
Every decision that an editor makes has to be done in accordance to drawing an audience inside of a story. To attach the audience to a story, the rhythm of the edit has to be in a way that places the audience in the character and to experience what the character is experiencing. Once a rhythm is established, the audience is motivated to keep watching while being gradually drawn inside of the story. The editor controls the information presented to build suspense so that the audience learn more about the characters along the way. Furthermore, an editor should refrain from spoon-feeding the audience, allowing them to be more engaged to the story, as the audience tend to get bored easily.
Show me what it's going to look like from this angle, and from this, and from that, because what I want to do is make a montage. Show me what it's going to look like so I can get in my mind the flash cuts. And he drew them very beautifully and graphically.
Filmmaking is a collaborative medium, and the entire production's goal is to keep the audience hooked to the emotion or action presented. In order to achieve this, an editor should be involved from the pre-production stage to get a good idea of the director's vision and pre-visualize the scenes. Hence, editing stems from the notion "shoot to edit" that may otherwise restrict the choices made by an editor if not discussed with the director prior to shooting. Dreamers Insomnia's script was analyzed, and thereafter a storyboard was produced. The storyboard was crucial in planning the cinematic aspects of the sci-fi elements. We Were E, on the other hand, did not have a shot list or a proper planning in pre-production. The planning of shots was done spontaneously on set. Consequently, the absence of a shot list resulted in insufficient shots, especially for the fast-paced forest scenes. Therefore, fragments from a number of takes were used to give an illusion of chaos through fast cuts. If the shots were pre-planned, the end result would have been more impactful, with the presence of multiple angles and shot types to enhance the pace of the edit. However, having a well-planned storyboard does not necessarily mean that the shoot will go accordingly. The footage contributes to the flexibility of editing. If the footage has quality, it has almost infinite possibilities during the post-production stage. Unfortunately, the final scene of Dreamers Insomnia was shot far from what we had pre-visualized due to the tight schedule on set. The whole scene was shot in a handheld method, randomly panning from one character to another. Thus, this had eliminated the selection of shot sizes and reaction shots required to enhance the rhythm of the character's performance. In order to save this performance, fragments from multiple takes of the same scene were used as cutaways, instead of constantly displaying the character talking. An editor cannot create material she does not have, however, can manipulate and extract fragments from the multiple takes of a scene as long as continuity is maintained to ensure there is a link between the shots. For instance, the shot of the thief leaving the location was manipulated in a way that it seemed he was entering the location. This was done due to the unavailability of an establishing shot to introduce the thief. The similar technique was applied to the child shot. A shot of her smiling was required to be shown. To create this, a fragment of the shot when she cries was taken, flipped, and increased in size to make it seem she is facing the opposite direction.
It is not the pure manner of the content. In other words, it's not the story. It's what you do with it in the technique which stimulates the emotion of the viewer of his picture.
Dreamers Insomnia and We Were E vary in terms of narrative approach, especially since the former is a short film and the latter is a prequel. The main difference between these is the amount of information presented through the plot that establishes the connection with the audience to the narrative and characters. Dreamers Insomnia utilizes the three-act plot structure, where the story has a beginning, middle, and exposition. The first act is when the protagonist has a desire for something, and then a conflict arises in the second act, and finally, the third act depicts the resolution. We Were E, on the other hand, has a narrative arc that is to flow across the sequels towards the exposition. This type of narrative approach typically ends with a cliffhanger to maintain the interest of audience when the sequel appears. Furthermore, this narrative is flexible to the changing of story and emergence of characters. The content of the prequel has to be strong enough that audience will remember as it serves as a guidance to the sequels. The narrative is influenced by the event rhythm that is defined as a series of scenes that explores problems and solutions. The essence of a scene is contained in the pause of the very last shot before moving to the next sequence. For instance, in Dreamers Insomnia, the transition from the close-up shot of the candle to the wide shot was done to illustrate the connection between the two main characters. This transition was loosely influenced by a scene from Lawrence of Arabia, where the cut was done to symbolize the character's infatuation with the desert. This cut is referred to as a match cut that implies a symbolic connection between disparate shots achieved by matching its graphic elements. Apart from that, to alert the audience to a change in a scene is by running the audio of the upcoming scene in the last shot of the current scene. In We Were E, the sound was used as a transition from one scene to another. The soundtrack, or otherwise known as the non-diegetic sound, becomes diegetic when the audience is made aware it is a song coming from the gramophone. This transition was inspired by The English Patient. The usage of the soundtrack has a deeper meaning because it acts as a glue between two scenes. However, if this technique is overused, there is a risk to make it predictable and eventually bore the audience. Action movies, however, depend on the physical rhythm for narrative construction. The physical rhythm, unlike emotional rhythm, the form and content are straightforward, as the movements in each shot portrays the meaning. As depicted in We Were E, the pace focuses on the narrative goals of the character that constitutes of critical shots needed to clarify the narrative progression. Here, the assembly of shots are used to form the state of chaos. The typical progression of a scene begins and ends with a long shot and uses close-ups to emphasize the pivotal moment within a scene. The establishing shot that is usually presented in a wide shot is crucial to set the context of a scene. However, there are other ways to establish a scene apart from the classical wide shot. Due to the unavailable wide shot to establish certain locations in Dreamers Insomnia, a montage of the objects that belong to the location were assembled to introduce the location. Hence, these shots were crucial to portray the sci-fi elements and environment. The Kuleshov effect is the element that makes up a montage. From the assembly of two shots, audience will establish a meaningful relationship between the shots. It is also a way to create the scene's geography by using the eye-line match technique. Here, the Kuleshov effect plays a role in forming spatial continuity between the connection of these two images. The second shot is filmed from a position on the end of the character's axis of action, and the audience is restricted to what he sees. The term montage is used to describe the creation of an idea or effect through an assembly of images and sound that are unrelated in time or space. A common use of montage is to depict the subjective mental state of a character or a sensation that he is outside of ordinary time and space. The pacing of an assembly of shots works as a tool to enhance a character's skills and build the narrative for the most dramatic outcome. For instance, the ability of Spectre to transfer his consciousness into one's mind is presented through the rate of cutting and movement within each shot and across the cut using flash frames. The change of color after the flash frames was inspired by Stalker for its use of color to distinguish between its two environments. Therefore, the power of this technique allows the audience to interpret the overall composition by making association of the shots shaped by rhythm. As depicted in a scene from Dreamers Insomnia, montage has the power to expose the character's unspoken thoughts. Montage can be also used to convey the passage of time, for instance, to shorten a scene that will be too long if it played in real time. The montage in We Were E was mainly used to portray the passing of time, rather than an element of character building. Dissolves were used to portray the gradual transition of time as the character goes through the fields and finds shelter. A dissolve is known for its ability to transport the viewer instantly through time and location. Both of these montages can pictorialize tremendous ideas without resorting a single line of expository dialogue.
Montage means the assembly of pieces of film, which, moved in rapid succession before the eye, create an idea.
Jump cuts were used to depict the psychological disturbance of the character. Although this type of cut contradicts the seamless continuity approach, its continuity is driven by the energy or emotion from the previous to the following shot. A jump cut serves more than just a style. It helps to enhance the emotional essence of a particular situation. Consequently, the series of jump cuts give the audience enough information to experience the pivotal moment. A smooth cut, however, was required to portray the physical arc of movement from one shot to another. This was essential for the gradual representation of the sci-fi element through the character's performance. The re-choreographing of the performance in certain scenes was sometimes a challenge, as the elements of each shot size were not always similar to produce continuity. Therefore, when consecutive shots were cut together with a continuity issue, the solution was to insert a reaction shot with the sound of the main shots laid over. Hence, the reason to why it is vital to keep the set background constant and position of characters similar in each take. The trailer of Dreamers Insomnia was created to promote the movie release. Typically, the rhythm of an impeccable trailer prioritizes materials from Act 1 and Act 2 of the film, and creates a new 3-act structure without giving too much information away. Hence, it is edited in a way that shows the audience the journey but not the destination of the movie. In terms of sound, sometimes a few music cues are used to accommodate the flow of rhythm. Ultimately, a trailer can contain a variety of beautiful shots, but the audience will only respond well if an appropriate rhythm is present. The cinematic aspect of Dreamers Insomnia that was planned before production gave me as an editor the advantage to present the narrative and sci-fi elements without confusing the audience. Unfortunately, the filming of the final scenes was rushed, making it difficult to deliver a good exposition of the narrative. This, however, could have been avoided if the shoot was postponed. Despite my best attempt to save the performance by inserting cutaways from multiple takes, the scene still lacks the overall rhythm required to establish the resolution, especially since the first 15 minutes of the film was well structured. It was not an effective way to end the film. We Were E did not have a plan before production that resulted in insufficient shots for certain scenes. The development of the montage came about when I assembled the rough cut and realized that the particular scene did not strongly illustrate the sense of chaos. Currently, the film is in the color grading stage for the overall tone, and especially to adjust the continuity in lighting caused by the assembly of shots taken from various scenes. The production of We Were E will continue with its sequels until the desired exposition is achieved. My concern as an editor is to ensure the sequels are pre-planned and every sequel is structured to end with a cliffhanger, so the audience will look forward to the progression of the narrative. Both of the short films gave me the opportunity to enhance the emotional rhythm by utilizing the rate of cutting through either a series of jump cuts or preserving continuity through a smooth cut. It was essential to know when exactly to use these techniques according to the purpose of the scene. I will definitely include my experiences for future projects as an editor, especially in terms of editing in accordance with genre and purpose of a scene. either to depict characterization or exposition. I would like to work not only with more sci-fi genres, but also with other genres to explore the effectiveness of rhythmic editing based on the analysis. In hindsight, editing should not exist in isolation, as it is a reflection of the film and needs to be considered before the shooting begins. Not only does it help an editor to understand the director's vision, it is also an opportunity to make suggestions on editing techniques according to the script. Hence, the contemplation helps to make rhythmic decisions to reveal the pivotal moments. Ultimately, the editing approach of Dreamers Insomnia and We Were E differ in terms of subgenre and narrative that is represented by the rhythm of the edit. As an editor, it is wise to experiment and to know when a certain pace is to be used based on the physical, emotional, and event rhythm, as it keeps the audience interested in the story. The pre-production, production, and post-production contribute as a whole to the rhythm of the edit, from the aspects of preparation of planning of shots, characters' performance, sufficient footage, and the re-choreographing done in the edit. Without this collaboration, the required rhythm becomes almost impossible to achieve. Thank you for watching this video essay.